So, Professor Dana?
Yes?
Hello, hi. My name is Stefano.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I heard that you teach a course on political Islam and I'm a ISS student. Do you have a minute for me to talk?
Sure, yes.
Can I sit? Is
Please,
that okay?
yes, of
Thank you so
course.
much. So, what actually political Islam is? What do you mean by it?
Well, political Islam is really an area of study that addresses how Islam and politics intertwine in some ways, right? So it's even a little bit more complicated than that to think about. Really to kind of understand the differences between Islam as a culture, in the sense, right, and a value system, and how that value system and a culture is really capitalized upon for political reasons. And kind of this is a broad type of an explanation. So that's really by and large what political Islam refers to. It's the use of Islam inspired values in politics.
So, what kind of themes are we gonna focus on in the course?
Well, for that particular course, for the most part, you will learn the difference between a person who happens to be a Muslim, who has a particular religious identity, in a sense, and also you'll understand the difference between religiosity and religious identity. So a person can be a Muslim, but the level of religiosity, which is the degree to which you practice and belong to a particular religion, and feel that you are part of a community that practices the same type of a religious identity. So there's that distinction that we will emphasize on in this class. So a person who happens to be Christian is different than someone who happens to be Christian and religious, right? So we'll emphasize that in the context of Islam in particular. But we'll also talk about the variations that exist within the so-called political Islam, right? So you find states that subscribe to political Islam, you find political and social movements that prescribe to political Islam, and then you also find non-state actors who prescribe to political Islam. So there's really a wide range of different things that are of a political Islam nature. So we'll be discussing most of that stuff. But in addition to that, and I think this is kind of like the general thing that we'll be talking about in the class, is to see, what makes political Islam emerge? Why did it emerge under certain circumstances? And what are the competing movements that really take away from, take some of the attention away from political Islamist groups and ideologies? And kind of like progressively think about contemporary things based on our knowledge that we gather early on in the class.
Can I ask you, if it's not too personal, how did you get interested in this?
Well, I'm a professor of Middle East politics, and my primary research area is Islam in Western societies. And I study the role of religion in the context of the Middle East, Arab Middle East. There is an importance to religion in life, in society, of course. But in addition to that, there's an important role to religion in politics in general. Even though oftentimes we don't think that our religious identity plays a role in the way we view the world, but certain values that we acquire from your grandmother, certain things that you acquire from your grandfather, things that we call oftentimes social reproduction, which is certain things that are passed from one generation to another. Those things are oftentimes of religious meaning. So it really affects how we see the world. Our moral compass is affected by that, at least in the kind of the most basic sense. Oftentimes you find people suggesting that because of their belief in Jesus Christ is something that makes them behave in a certain way. Similarly, when it gets to Islam, so people who happen to be Muslim, sometimes you find that really feeds into their knowledge base in terms of their political positions and how they take certain positions.
And
that was not a personal question.
Thank you. No, it's just like, again,
sure.
It's just so interesting. And religion sometimes it's in my experience, it's something that it's sometimes a little bit tricky to discuss.
Sure.
And I'm actually thinking as well, how does the idea of religion for you fits in social sciences? Because I've been talking with more than one professor that are part of the degree, and I'm trying to understand what social science actually means. So how do you like place religion in social science?
Well, religion really, as I mentioned earlier, it really feeds into a culture, right? It feeds into society. It is part of how power structures operate. It really is part of how we view society. And we cannot, for example, look at a social context or a regional context. Example is the Middle East, for example, without really understanding the role of the predominant religion of that particular region. There is, however, a difference, as you can imagine, in terms of how religion is, in terms of the significance of religion in different places. So you find religion to be important in certain parts of the Middle East, more so than other parts of the Middle East. Similarly, I mean, in Italy, you find Catholicism to be of certain significance compared to places in Latin America, partly because maybe the popes, exist close within proximity to Italy, to say the least, if not within Italy, but rather to think that, that there are variations there. So clearly, religion is a very significant indicator for studying. When we want to study society, it is really part of what we have to take into account. It's really contextualizing a culture requires that we understand certain values that are acquired and held closely to that particular society, right? So one of those things happens to be religion, and religion is quite significant in the study of social science. So I study religion and politics in general, in different contexts, right? In the Middle East, I study how religion makes people behave in a certain way politically.
Yeah.
Similarly, I study in the United States, how do Muslims, for example, in general religiosity, not only for Muslims, but I study how do Muslims in the United States and in Western societies, how are they inspired by their religious identity to become more active in the political system, to participate better in their own communities and on, become better citizens, better community leaders, and better citizens in general, better neighbors, and so on. So for me, I cannot see the world without the importance of religious identity. But also religiosity, which is a different concept than just simply a religious identity. But it really also plays a role, in my opinion.
What do you mean with the religiosity?
So religiosity is oftentimes studied, and there are a lot of people who study religion and politics, but most of the time they define it as actually to have three components. These three components are, they're called actually the three B's, okay? Belonging, the fact that you think that you actually belong to a particular community that shares a similar identity. Believing a particular text or a story, that Islam is this and that, certain tenets of Islam, or for example that Jesus is the Son of God, etc. That's a particular story, and also believing of a particular text, right? That is believed to be holy in some ways. So that's the second B. The third B is behaving in a certain way, right? So you would do certain things that would make you a better Christian or a better Muslim or a better Jew or a better whatever it is, regardless of the religion. But so these are the three components. And really, you can find someone suggesting that, I'm Muslim, okay? That's a religious identity. That's what they've just identified in terms of their own identity. But then the question of their religiosity is yet a different thing that is honestly measurable in terms of social science. We could easily see how many times do people study certain things or read particular and there are oftentimes we can see how many acts people engage in when it gets to behaving and whatnot. So it's easily measurable in the sense. So there is clearly a difference between religiosity and a religious identity, and both, in my opinion, play a role in terms of how we study a particular society. We have to make distinctions, of course, that religiosity is often connected to things that you probably hear on television and all that. And I think this class will be very helpful to people who want to know more about Islam and politics and different global problems that happen around the world. The class will definitely provide a lot of those answers, a lot of the questions that you might have. So I do recommend that you take the class, because you'll definitely understand that much of what is oftentimes covered in international media is stuff that really is not accurate or not entirely accurate. So most of the time you'll find close to truth, but never, unfortunately, full truth. For a variety of reasons, but we have to understand that there are a lot of stereotypes that play into the question of Islam, especially in the 21st century. So we have to understand that clearly as we proceed. So again, there are multiple reasons as to why this class, as a social science class, because we deal with questions related to social movements, we deal with questions related to international relations, international politics, so there's a wide range of things that we cover in this class.
So is there anything that I have to study, any prerequisite, something that any reading you suggest?
Well, actually there are no prerequisites for this class. The only thing, if you have a prerequisite or you've taken a class in political science or global politics or international studies, that would be fantastic. Or if you've studied anything in relation to the Middle East. So there's no need really for anyone to come with any knowledge. I will make sure that this class, and it's really designed for people who know nothing really. We will start talking about questions related to what is Islam.
Because that's my case. I don't know much about Middle East or anything, so I'm
or
okay
Islam
with
per
that.
se. Okay, so again, you don't have to be from the Middle East in order for you to be Muslim. These types of that's one fact. Fact number one that you should get now is that not everyone in the Middle East is Muslim, and not all Muslims are in the Middle East. In fact, most Muslims are not from the Middle East. Excuse me. But to suggest that really here, we have to understand certain concepts. And I will make sure you will get those concepts. We will not delve into bigger questions until we make sure that we know certain things. So there are no prerequisites at all whatsoever, except for your thirst for knowledge.
That I have.
Good.
That we're covered.
Very good. Very good.
And what about the amount of work? Is that a lot of readings or?
Actually, well, we have only one book.
Oh, wow.
Only one book, and it's not that bad. It's probably the best book that is out there on the study of political Islam on a global level. So, we contextualizing this class within the global politics, globalization in the sense, right? The world we live in the 21st century primarily is one of movement, is one of telecommunications and whatnot. And part of these questions, part of the particular context, of course, brings about things related to, the role of religions on a global level, right? So, so only one book.
Wow.
Simple, easy to read. You will read one chapter at a time, and it's simple. Most of the concepts that seem to be big will be broken down to their absolute bare minimums. So there's nothing to worry about.
That's amazing.
So the amount of work also, it's quite simple on a regular basis. Every week you have literally just something simple, a very simple write-up of what you've gathered from the material, and that's really it.
So what do you feel about teaching the class online?
It's an interesting experience to say the least, because I think that we live in a world where we have to provide, as educators, we have to provide knowledge on multiple levels, not only through the traditional classroom, which is quite significant and important. Nothing can really replace that experience, because there's that personal interaction that is quite significant. Yet I believe that we have to be able to provide knowledge through different mediums, one of which would be online. This way we're able to reach the hard-to-reach people who really want their education, who want to be able to get quality education, but they're unable physically to go from one place to another. This is the important thing about technology in any society, is that it has to be used and it should be, in my opinion, should be used for the betterment of human condition. Oftentimes that unfortunately doesn't happen. Think about the nuclear weapon. But in when we consider utilization of something like online platforms to deal with certain things. Think about how important email is in your life. 15, 20 years ago, email didn't even exist. But only to imagine that simple technology has really revolutionized much of how we deal with our society. So it is quite significant to provide different platforms. It's really the same material that I have, it just really packaged a little differently for a different audience.
What do you think about specifically talking about religion in an online environment?
It's a little bit dangerous in general to teach certain things related to religion in general, because or religious identity or religiosity, because I think it requires a depth of knowledge in the particular subject matter. It doesn't mean that it's not doable, but rather to suggest that you have to be very careful in terms of how you address and anticipate certain questions. Because oftentimes in a classroom, I would mention certain things and a student raises their hands and ask, well, I haven't heard about this. Could you please explain that? And then you feel that answering that question provides everyone else in the classroom with an answer. Unfortunately, that cannot simply happen with an online already planned type of a lesson plan, in a sense. So that we can actually be able to address that problem by simply planning appropriately, in my opinion, to kind of anticipate types of problems that might emerge in an online setting, right? But similarly in a classroom setting. So I can easily anticipate 6 or 7 questions that pop up most of the time in a class that I teach for the 17th, 18th time. So that really has helped. The knowledge that I've had in the past has really contributed to my ability to design a course where I anticipate certain problems and deal with them before they even emerge. So it is challenging, but it requires knowledge and it requires an ability to deal with these types of challenges. Was this helpful?
Well, this was very helpful, and I think I'm going to take the class.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm very delighted.
I can't wait.
Good to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Ciao.
Take care.